Lounge. And thank you all for being here yet again. It's Wednesday, time for another inspiring Light 'em Up show. And this one is truly special. It's been quite a bit of time in the making, but finally we managed to have Jonathan Drew here with us today, coming live from, is it Wynwood or are you in Esteli at the moment?
No, at the moment I branched off to a new department. I'm here in an undisclosed location in Miami Beach, South Beach area today.
What a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time and being here with us. I'm so much looking forward to hearing a bit more about the exceptional journey of not only Jonathan Drew, but obviously Drew Estate and everything that you'll be building in the future. So let's kick things off. And as always, for all our dear friends and family here at the lounge, please make sure that you have all your questions ready for Jonathan Drew, and for everybody watching over on Facebook, please put your questions underneath the live stream. I'm always checking so we can make sure to forward your questions to Jonathan here at the lounge. Mr. Drew, besides crafting exceptional cigars, Drew Estate is most definitely about creating exceptional culture. I'm curious, when you started your dream way back in the late 90s, did you envision and intentionally set the foundations for the culture that would then become Drew Estate? Or was it a natural evolution and progression over time?
Yeah, well, Reinhold, first and foremost, thank you so much again. We've been looking forward to this, and was on my mind. I had said to Joe, we really enjoy these branching out a little bit past, beyond not just the United States, but North America, and thinking of Drew Estate as a global brand is really a new kind of journey for us. And it's going to tie into your question about the culture side of it. Is when we really, just to take a step back as part of your question, when we really think about the early days of Drew Estate, which is you're asking me, all right, so when you were this small company, which I'm going to label as a cult brand, where how did that play in and the culture play into this, what I call now the transformation we've went through? Is we're now what I call a trust brand. So cult brand to trust brand, and that journey in terms of the culture aspect to it, how much did it play a role, and how much of it was actually predestined and planned by us versus what happened organically? And just to give you some basis, when Forbes did that article in 2001, it was Krispy Kreme, it was Harley Davidson, and it was Apple before the iPhone, before the iPad, and believe it or not, before iTunes, whatever it was called at the time. Joe, what was it called? Where you had the earliest Apple shit. Anyway.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the exact name. It was like Apple Music or some weird BS.
It was iTunes.
Nah, before
there was one before. There was one before it.
Yeah, the first thing before even the iPhone, man. Anyway, so back then Forbes dropped this and the cover story, obviously, and we were right there, full page. And I remember saying to the guys, I was like, yo, we a cult brand. I didn't wrap my head around it. And I realized, Crispy, Harley Davidson, Apple, this really your core audience is hard. They're going to stand with you. They're your tribe. And that 20-year journey, and now 25 years of transitioning, that as we moved out of transactional into this transformational space and turning into where that becomes, where we're not the new kids on the block. Jose will tell you, we would pick up a table and throw a chair at a people. We were wild when we started in Esteli, especially, and in Brooklyn. Our crew was young. We were not late 20s, early 20s, and we were rebellious and we were irreverent. And it wasn't even about cigars. Cigars were part of it. That was the piece of it that was like this beautiful pleasure of luxury with a bunch of hoodlums smoking it. And as we got older and a little bit more sophisticated and learned to live differently and develop, not just our development from Acid brand, which is probably the United States' strongest brand in terms of sales or whatever. Back then it was Yo, no thank you. You could have renamed the asset as no thank you. Not here. We don't want it on the shelf. No space for that here. A dreadlock dude on the no, no good. And that transformation right there, it was like how rap music came into music, because there was music before rap music, believe it or not. And its entrance into music extended so far past just what you would think of a hip hop guy or whatever, and its blended approach into reggaeton, everything. I mean, even tremendous Kanye with opera, with the best metropolitan opera in the world, in the United States, in my opinion. Probably a bunch of you European guys might disagree, and girls. But the piece of it that's prescribed was not just being true to ourselves, because you hear that kind of lingo all the time. We had to be who we were, and we were this and that. But what made us different, Reinhold, was we weren't reckless, but we were righteous. We did our thing. We walked our path, and people didn't like it. And the more we got pushed down, and the more that we realized we had so many obstacles in front of us, and as we made mistakes too, significant mistakes, our fans and our fan base and people who loved our products, I I remember one time Jeff at Corona Cigar Company saying to me, "Listen, you're not the Acid Cigar Company. You're Drew Estate." And it was that vote of confidence that was like a defining moment for me anyway, where I realized that we have our house of brand, we have our branded house, which is Drew Estate, and separately we have our brand house of brands, which, as you guys know, goes from everything from traditional to infused to non-traditional cigars, and this full gamut of products. So our culture, what made us different was not just being true to ourselves, but being really willing to make changes and evolve quickly. And we evolved both in the Nicaraguan side, starting as the smallest factory in the world, which is Six Factor, as one of the smallest, 6 people, including myself, to becoming clearly the world's largest, and producing about 250,000 cigars a day. About 85% of them are long filler, which is essentially about 41% of what Cuba makes in a day. That transformation culturally, as we learned more and as we brought more people into the mix who were able to work with us to lock into our core competencies and acknowledge them, we did have it. Things were staged out and strategically planned to be able to highlight aspects, what I call fellowship, Reinhold, and the pieces of our culture, based on hip hop, based on graffiti, and mostly on that graffiti side and that New York culture and that New York swagger, meeting Nicaragua, which is a very, very different, complete different vibe. And so the Nicaraguan vibe, bringing graffiti artists from Managua and having them move into the country of Esteli. Drew Estate's factory is up in a mountain. We're in the north of Nicaragua. We're up perched on a mountain crest towards the Honduran border. It's even people in Managua like, yo, Esteli, that shit's dangerous. That's the Sandinistas. No, well, that's just bullshit. Come on out to Esteli and paint. I'm going to give you all the paint you want. These guys were stealing paint cans when we walked out of paint. You don't got to steal no cans with me. Don't worry about none of that. We're going to give you everything. And we did. And we invested into it. And as we built from 2 graffiti artists to 20 to 30 to 50 something, that dual infusion of our New York sensibilities and our new understanding us around. You walk into a room in 3 seconds, you spotted, who's there, what you're doing. And on the Nicaraguan side, we really learned a lot and about taking care of people, being a paternalistic company, understanding the golden rule for True Estate: take care of your people, and your people will take care of you. And bringing that aspect into it, and creating medical centers at our place, and life insurance for our employees, and paying by far the most of any company in in Nicaragua, and probably Central America as well. And really being able to say that on camera and say, who says I'm wrong? Well, fuck you, you're full of shit. No one's gonna say that. Drew Estate, everyone wants to work at Drew Estate, like our fábrica Drew Estate in Nicaragua, because they know how we are with our people, and it runs deep. So those cultural aspects go way beyond like graffiti and flashy shit, some big jewelry. No, for me, that cultural side, which people neglect to spot, is taking care of our people. Mother's Day at our factory, or having Purissimo, where all the kids, everybody is singing in the street, and the line wraps around the Drew Estate factory. You're talking a grand factory the size of 3 football fields, and it's full of lines surrounding it, of everybody coming from the town. I don't care if you work for Drew Estate. We want to celebrate our town, our heritage in Esteli. So long answer to your question is, it's an evolution. It's a mix of both approaches. Part of it was just this really like, just we're going to be who we are, cigars, graffiti, hip hop. The other piece of it was the love. And, that's stuff that you get from your mother and father, because that's what we are. We're our parents' child. And my mother was a very loving woman, head nurse of the largest mental institution in the world. So I think we brought a lot of that over. And the Nicaraguan society there really, really loved it. And Alejandro Martina Cuenca, he is, one of my idols and one of my most favorite people. He really acknowledged what we were doing in Nicaragua, and was able to say, hey, listen, we love what you're doing in Nicaragua. Come and join the Nicaraguan Guilders Association. And after that, we created the Nicaraguan Cigar Festival. We looked at the Cuban Cigar Festival and the Dominican one, and we said, Old Man Padron was amazing. He came on the stage. It was just great times. So the development of everybody wanting to be, no one wanting to be part of Nicaragua. Like Nicaragua was that best kept secret. Nicaraguan tobacco getting shipped to Cuba, Dominican Republic, Honduras, every nook and cranny, Nicaragua, but no one saying a word. No mention of Nicaraguan tobacco. We broke that mold. We cracked that. And that was, Hoya and Plasencia, Padron, and ourselves. And Drew Estate, to be honest with you, with Cigar Safari, which Jose here has labeled the ultimate cigar experience, which I'll never forget when you came up with that. I've seen 30 people steal it, senor.
True.
So, those things evolved for us, and we got smarter and we got older. And, there's a lot of love at the company and our culture now. I would say, if I had to say on the pendulum, right? Is it more about the swag and that fly shit? So using my glasses, this fly, even though the chick's glasses. But on the other side of it is something way more beautiful. And that's just taking care of each other, brotherhood and fellowship, and being able to say, we're making our money. The factory, what are we going to do? Air conditioning for the employees, having the things that make the difference. And our colleagues in Nicaragua who are bancheros and roleras, everybody across the board, honoring them to the best of your ability. And sometimes even, so anyway, that's about that right there.
Now, taking all that into consideration, most people would probably say that the story of Drew Estate began way back at that small kiosk in the World Trade Center. And you were a deputy political director in Washington that started smoking in 92. You studied at Brooklyn Law School with probably the intention of becoming an attorney, which didn't play out all too well, thankfully. Like, do you think that you found cigars in your life, or did cigars in the cigar industry actually find you?
That's nice, Reinhard. You have some elegance in those questions, right? So, yeah, that's a good one. I was a confused child, I was very confused. An only son, had no family other than my mother and father. I didn't have that many role models, let's call it, to, be able to look for pathways of that would say, this is the pathway. So I always was, I was playing guitar, and then, all of a sudden I found myself in college, the whole thing. That's a really good question. When I was in law school, which I did graduate, I graduated 7th in the class from the bottom. So there was only, out of 156 kids, I was almost the worst. And it was during that time period in law school. And I did work for Alphonse D'Amato, who was the second most powerful senator, actually second most powerful person in our entire government. And he hired me. out of 35 interns to become his deputy political director. So I was on a staff of 7, and we were running in 1992 against Abrams for him to he took Rockefeller out, my boss at the time, Senator D'Amato. And then that was an incredible experience. And that's where I started to learn to smoke cigars. So D'Amato was a big cigar smoker. And I was in Washington, D.C., working at the Hart Building, which is where our Senate is, and every day there. And I started puffing. I was already puffing on the lie, you know, I was already puffing on the weed. And then I started puffing also on the cigars. So I kind of had best of both worlds going on. And it took me very short time to understand the aspect of the beauty, period, full stop. The aspect of the beauty of cigars. And people think about cigars now, they go, oh, Pete Johnson, Jose Blanco, Pepin, Padron, whatever you're into. Fuente, one of the legends, the greatest have ever lived. But oftentimes, what they're not able to do or don't have the time to do is to go back further and think about spice trades, or think about coffee trades, or think about movement of furs. I'm talking on boats where people would move tobacco in the intestines of pigs hundreds of years ago, and what people would do for tobacco, right? What do you think America is built on? IBM? It's not built on this. And that's just the United States, right? And then all the European countries, everybody's got their thing. But from a standpoint of natural resources in the earliest days, I'm talking Little House on the Prairie on the wagon wheel and shit, right? Finding oil. Tobacco was one of these commodities, which now we say commodities, a negative word. Whoa, we're not a commodity. We're an artisanal product of highest skill set. Look at this Panchero and the Rolera. They're cousins, by the way. Listen, tobacco is plants that's rolled up in tubes, and the Indians smoke kaniki nick, and they mix deer tongue and lavender and sage. When Jesus Christ was in India, they were smoking hookah, 40% molasses mixed with flavoring components, and just maybe 20% tobacco. Tobacco is godly. It's been part of the human culture forever. And once you tap into that piece of it, and you'd say, well, it's not really cigarettes, and it's not really blunts, and this and that. It's tobacco, though, from its standpoint of what two dignified, typically men, but it expanded beyond there. There's been incredible women smokers, and now certainly a bigger portion of our demographics of the industry worldwide, globally, great women smokers now. But it was a moment where it was a ritualistic moment. It was a ritualistic moment, and you say, was it ritualistic or was it a dreamlike state? Which one was it? And that movement from a ritual of, we're gonna do Kaniki Nick together and smoke from the peace pipe. That meant I'm not gonna chop your fucking head off with an axe. Like, that's where we're getting live right there. I'm not gonna chop your head off and your whole family's head off with some machetes. And that sense of peace is really deeply embedded into smoking. It's a relaxing. You smoke together, you break the ice, you talk about it. So for me, I'm a historian because my parents are antique dealers. So as we created Drew Estate, my parents were very influential in that with me, always there, not just supporting me, but when I would talk to my parents about Ernesto Perez Carrillo, and I would say, look, my first brand was based on the framework of La Gloria Cubana. La Gloria Cubana was based on the framework of Rolando Reyes Sr., which then was Puros Indios or Cubaleados, 3-country blend in the filler, binder, wrapper, Ecuadorian, Sumatra. That right there is gold. That's a golden rule. And in tobacco, as you start to move material, you're moving 20,000 cigars a day. A big factory might move 35,000, produce 30,000 cigars a day, 25,000 cigars a day. It's a monster factory. Once you get to 50,000 or 100,000, 150,000, 200,000 cigars, you start to look at a lot of models that have been around historically. Back then, for me, tobacco, it was less about the tobacco directly, and it was more about the spirit and the history and this just incredibly honored tradition of, of that ritual. And I, from there, it became part of my friends, our like daily thing. And then when I would be in the Hamptons and stuff, so it was very organic, dude. Bottom, I think.
Let me
Overall.
ask you this: when you speak about your family having that background in antiques, there's this historical element. The cigar industry is all about tradition and heritage. Yet most people will probably say that Drew Estate has been the largest disruptor over the last 20 years plus in the industry. Do you think your disruptive energy that you brought to the industry was sort of a natural consequence and sort of the antithesis to what you have experienced with your parents and with all that historical depth? Is it like you had to sort of break out of it, or was it just your innermost truth?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's our word. We own that word, antithesis. I always talk about Socrates. How many, raise your hand if you know who Socrates is? Socrates. And Socrates, very good, Ian. Um, uh, yeah, what's up, Ian? So, Socrates talked about the thesis. What's the thesis? We use the word status quo, and we look at it pejoratively. It's negative, but the thesis, that's what you got. That's your baseline. And then the antithesis comes, and it comes roaring. It comes punching. It's to grab the thesis and say, no, we're going to make change. Most often, brother, that gets pushed away, and the thesis continues strong. The thesis is planning, regulatory control, all of the things that keep the power in power. We were always looking at the power and saying, like, how do we come at this in our own way? Like, we don't want nothing to do with what these guys are doing. And we became the antithesis very quickly. And like I said, our core audience became like our shield. And then it was like a Troy situation where like people would talk shit about Tristan. Oh no, those guys are a flavored cigar. Oh, what? And they came like social media. You guys know, social media wise, we were like 10 years ahead of everybody. So what happened was all these people were connecting like Voltron from all over, and then they would defend the core. So it may sound crazy, but I got the evidence. The numbers prove it. All this shit that I'm dropping right now, you could be like, yo, what is he talking about? No, it's mathematical. You can't argue with math. And when you see those killer bees popping out everywhere, that disruptive element, people felt good about it. They felt like, yo, this is the home of misfit toys. These are people who are imperfect. These people are challenged. They got problems, been through major problems, and or not, but they're different, and they're diverse, and they're inclusive. And if that was the hip hop side of it, or that was the dudes in the mosh, whatever it was, everybody, I mean, they just gravitated to it. So it was all these people who needed a place to be their home, also to fucked up individuals. And, that was a disruptive moment because it grew beyond us. It grew beyond what we had, a bunch of graffiti artists, and then, the love built into it, and those things kept galvanizing. So you said it earlier, from a disruptive piece, you want to know the big thing that people don't understand, or really it's hard to wrap your head around, was it wasn't so much what we did, that what we did in rolling this big ball on our shoulder, like push it up the mountain. Because I always talk about being in the mountain. We go to the mountain for strength. We remove ourselves, climb up in the mountain, grow a beard. I grew a beard down like ZZ Top for a number of 6 years to get my head straight, so we could do this. It was all the Cubans, all the old dudes. They kind of liked us, and they're very powerful in the cigar industry. All the guys who had to leave Cuba during the revolution, and they have significant weight to this day as to what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And a lot of the older Cuban guys, I talk about, Orlando Padron a lot. He's somebody who I carry in my daily thoughts a lot, a tremendous amount. And Nick Perdomo Sr., believe it or not, there are a lot of these guys who, they really loved us. And they would come and stop at the factory, major guys getting out of the car, two dudes opening the door for them, another guy holding the cappuccino while they're walking so they can have a sip of cappuccino, take off the white suit. And they'd walk into the Jewish State Factory and they'd bump it into the kids spraying graffiti and like, what is this, JD? And Frank Ianessa, a fucking god to me. You know, you think about Padron, you know, his brother is who's also passed away, Don Orlando's brother, Estelo. He ran Vilazon before it was purchased by General. The Macanudo people purchased, you know, Hoy de Monterrey and Punch. And how will these pieces come together? All of these greats, these Cubans, who were 5th generation, 7th generation, so far back, like they made the number, pick a number, 7 generation, I don't know, fucking 12. They know tobacco because they're from the legends of kings. Like I was telling you, the spice trade, fur trade, tobacco trade, the trade of kings. And they embraced us with love. For some reason, I was a green, what he used to call me, yo, Jose, what did the old man used to call me?
El gringo loco ese.
Ese, un chavalo, he dice, un gringo loco. And they brought us in and they said, these guys are okay. This guy, you can carry these cigars. Because now you see Cigars International, these big Corona cigar. Of course, they're going to carry juice that you have to have it. It's a problem. If you don't, you lose customers. But at first, the doors were shut. And it was the old Cuban guys who say, hey, we need this. Carlito used to stop every day in my booth at the trade show. Every single year, no matter what, Carlito Fuente would stop up and say, JD, I give you a hug for good luck. You're the most original company in the cigar industry. Jose, you tell me if I'm wrong. Every fucking
True. JD got frozen.
Jose, we just make it a reoccurring joke, right? Like it has happened to us at Puro Sabor with the iffy connection from Nicaragua, and
But
now,
he's in Miami, so it shouldn't be happening in Miami.
true story. Well, I'm pretty sure he's gonna be back super soon. But Jose, like over to you. When you first got in contact with Jonathan Drew and everything that he was building, what was your first sensation, your first feeling of what was about to happen to that very disruptive energy and everything that Jonathan brought to the table?
Well, the thing with Jonathan is that I knew Jonathan from before. And I remember I was at La Aurora and the people of Cigar Aficionado had called me and knew my relationship with Jonathan, what he was creating. And I can't remember exactly the words, but I think it was Dave Savona who called me and said, can you give us a quote for Jonathan Drew? And I said, I think that Jonathan Drew is the most innovating and exciting person that has come to the industry. And then I remember at that show that year, I saw Jonathan and he gave me a hug. Because this is one thing I've always said. I give credit to credit deserves. If there's something I don't like about the person, I just won't give a quote. To me, there's not a bad cigar. To me, what it is, it's not my cup of tea. But I can tell you something. I've known Jonathan for over 20 years. And with Jonathan, what you see is what you get. There is no BS about him. I think he's very genuine and what he has done. I mean, that's the real American dream.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I would also like to take a moment here to yet again thank all of you for tuning in. There's like boatloads of people watching over on Facebook. So many thanks to all of you for taking the time and being here with us today. And I want to give a special shout out to our dear friend and brother, Ray Pradanoff, who has been one of the most loyal regulars and followers of Light 'em Up. And today is his birthday. So Ray, my dear brother, this one's to you. I know you love JD cigars, so what an epic show for you to celebrate your birthday on, and our love and our best wishes to you. And please keep joining us and keep delighting us with your company. Happy birthday.
Joe, did you get a hold of him?
I think Jonathan is back.
He's back.
Okay,
He's
good.
back.
I'm back. Sorry about that. My
The fat boys are back.
The fat boys are back. Yeah, we used to scream it. We would be in the Cigar Safari, have like 20-something people all visiting, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, everybody's having dinner, and all of a sudden, Jose Blanco and me start screaming out, "The fat boys are back!" It was very very good times. So yeah, I apologize about my shit going down. I jumped back on my phone, Reinhard. Sorry about
Not
that.
at all. Thank you so much for jumping back right on. So when you talk about the success story of Drew Estate, do you think that it was a child of its time because change was so badly needed, or do you think that the story could be replicated at any given moment in time?
Wow, you really did some good questions. So yeah, replication, right? So yeah, that's good. Now we definitely were definitely a sign of the time, and I want to tell you why. Your question makes it sound like what Drew Estate did. Check me here. What did Drew Estate do? It was a moment in time. Could that be replicated? And a great friend of mine, a person I respect a lot, Pete Johnson. That's why I always say, like, there was Carlito, then there was JD, then there was Pete Johnson, and then Dion is kind of a lineage that I've spoke about, where I feel like there's some connectivity. Clearly, all different people and different families, nothing connected, but just there's this core that follows through. But the point is this: ready? It wasn't so much what Drew Estate did. What was happening at the time, a layered, textured approach. Nicaragua was moving from what I talked about earlier of this best kept secret to all of a sudden blow the fucking door off the hinges. Nicaragua is it. Point. When I opened my first cigar shop in 2006, in 1996, in the World Trade Center, I would sell 100 Dominican cigars to one Nicaraguan stick. Now, Drew Estate, Nicaragua is the #1 importer of tobacco to the United States and globally in the world. So think about that transformation. If JD wasn't here and we were just talking like at the Nicaraguan Council of Cigars, and we were talking like, how did that transformation happen? With that platform, that super highway. For us, all these freaks who are here joining you on your call, who follow your show and who say, all right, I'll check out JD. Some of your guys, some of our guys, whatever. They're cigar lovers at the end of the day. Huh? What happened was they were being led down one path. In Europe and globally, global brands, it's still Cuba. And there's a lot of reasons why. Excellent tobaccos and the culture and the imagination and the fascination and solid reasons that they deserve, the Cubans. What happened was Nicaragua, that superhighway of Nicaragua kind of just wrapped us and we wrapped it. And as those two things became interwoven, it wasn't like, oh yeah, Hoya de Nicaragua, the way they are now is Hoya de Nicaragua is, we call them this because, you know, Nicaragua and Padron, Hoya and Padron, they really make what's called a Nicaraguan puros, a purely Nicaraguan cigar. That's what they really specialize in. That's their core competency. We don't do that at Drew Estate. We don't make puros. We make blended cigars. I like to do 5-6 country blends. That makes me really happy, 4 at minimum. And where those two highways met, man, that was the crossroad of innovation. That was the crossroads of social media. So what happened was social media was cutting through. Nicaragua was cutting through. Drew Estate was cutting through. And all of these things hit and they all kind of exploded in a big bang. But the one that was the most powerful, I guess they were all powerful, of them was the movement to Nicaragua of saying, this is a Nicaraguan tobacco. This is Nicaragua. And people saying, hey, you know, I want to try Nicaragua. So, holy shit, the strength, the earth, the texture of this tobacco. Un tobacco más fuerte, the gallo más gallo. Of all the roosters who fight in the rooster den, there's one rooster walks with his head up. And the guy comes running over to a human being. The rooster look right at him. Don't even move. What do you want? That's Nicaraguan tobacco. It's just so bold. And everybody fell in line. At the same time, you had social media. Those two presences were much bigger than Drew Estate. We happened to be the communication channel that linked those two things together. And then we had something that no one would ever understand. It was a company who had strength. Was we made cigars that had a good draw. Actually making a cigar that could draw good, believe me. Now, AJ, everybody's making good cigars that could draw. Really, really good drawing cigars in Nicaragua. When we first started, these cigars were tight as fuck. You couldn't even smoke the shit, half of it. And we said, no. My father would say, that's your draw. because I want the smoke to cloud of smoke to just, you're like, there's a cloud of smoke around you like that dude in, you know, like you want to have that big old cloud, not Cheech and Chong, but the other guy I was thinking. So those three combinations propelled us to be the voice. So we found our groove through that coming together of those three things, of Nicaragua's birth and social media's birth and Drew Estate's birth. The intertwining of those three things created an unstoppable force. It was a leviathan. You couldn't get in front of it. All you could do is stand around it and amongst it. And then all of a sudden you find us in a trade show with a booth the size of Marlboro. Like, who's these guys? Couldn't pay my light bills, $27 million. Who are these people? And all of a sudden, you know, the music's blasting, people are having a good time, women are involved, you know, just beautiful people coming over from everywhere, and women want to be part of it and smoke in our booth. And everybody said they're dancing in the Drew Estate booth. Old man Padron was like 90 years old, dancing in our booth with Estelo and with Robert Fauchblau from Thompson, all the old timers, and they wanted that energy. And we just said, oh, you want that energy? This is nothing. Let's show you what we could do. And then we built La Gran Fabrica. And when we built that, we had 11 factories throughout Esteli. When we built the La Gran Fabrica, we said, no, we want you to go to the most beautiful vineyard in the world, where only the finest wine could be met while you sleep and get up in the morning, and the sun is hitting the beautiful morning out on a mountaintop, and you're looking over at the vineyards and the most beautiful in the world. We want to recreate that feeling at our La Gran Fabrica Drew Estate. We perched us up on this mountain crest. And when people came to our factory, everybody said, JD, it was Liga Privada that busted you out of the acid world, that brought you into traditional cigars, but it was not Liga Privada. It was Cigar Safari that led the pathway and opened the doors for Liga Privada, bringing people to our factory. When you come to La Gran Fabrica Drew Estate, I've heard the Disney World, I've heard the this, I've heard the that. Shit is raw. It's just our factory is a beautiful living testament to art. That's giant 14 feet Mother Mary or Guadalupe, very religious. Like when you walk around the Drew Estate factory, we have dozens of beautiful, all of the virgins, all of the Catholic symbols that transform you into a godly moment, and being able to understand that, you know, our people are beautiful, and, you know, so it's very spiritual.
It's obvious, as you mentioned, that the success of Drew Estate is also directly interwoven with the success story of Nicaragua emerging as the #1 manufacturing country of premium cigars. Yet you've traveled the entire world. You've spent plenty of time in Miami's Wynwood district, as well as in Nicaragua. How much inspiration do you actually draw from your physical surroundings? Is terroir something that sort of changes your perspective on the way you do things? Or is it just your own way of thinking, of working and behaving that is entirely detached from time and place? I believe you've just muted yourself, Jonathan.
Say the last piece of that. I missed the very end.
My question was, when you've seen so many countries, and do you actually take inspiration from your physical surroundings? And was Nicaragua like the nucleus of what was happening to Drew Estate? Or do you feel like you have your own way of doing things and that's just detached from time and place?
Got you, bro. Sorry about that, Reinhard. So yeah, it was really Fritz Bossert, who, when you think about a tobacco company, right away you think, oh, you know, General Cigar Company, you know, or the Cuban government, or Habanos S.A., or whatever, you know, Fuente, whatever. And we look at these like brand champions, right? These incredible brand champions who we say, these guys can make cigars, and they got a great family and a heritage. On the other side of it, the people who are actually the tobacco growers, right? So it doesn't mean that these guys don't have farms. They have farms, and good farms. But the traditional, historically based growers of tobacco Small farmers who are growing Olor in Dominican Republic in their backyard and selling it to the Olor guy who goes around in a pickup truck. Or then you start thinking of the Leviathan, right? Universal leaf. For those of you who don't know universal leaf, Google them. You're talking about a giant 16 country, publicly traded, massive operation, 8 giant headquarters throughout the world, global, from Indonesia to Africa. They could be supplying everything, every type of tobacco, because we'd have to stop with this, like cigarettes are bad and the Dutch Masters or Swishers are bad. It's all an ecosystem. All of these pieces add up to an ecosystem that allows premium cigars to be able to be produced at an economically fair price. All of that ecosystem of tobacco is very important in being able to bring our products to market and keep the prices reasonable. So Fritz Boster, really, he is the president of Lancaster Leaf, where the broadleaf is grown and all the Connecticut River Valley stuff. And he is in charge of their dark air cure division. It's a I don't know, $1 billion division. It's major shit. And he was working for ASP, which is Andy and Sylvia Perez. ASP is very famous, as you guys know, for their filler leaves, for their farms, for their Ecuadorian, where their biggest strength is Ecuador. All that Connecticut shade tobacco that you guys smoke is from them. Most of it is from them in Ecuador. And there's a couple of the guys who grow, but they're these guys, when the volcanoes erupt in Ecuador, these dudes get hurt. They're there, thousands, 6,000 people. So Fritz moved from there to Universal Leaf and became a major player on the board of directors. And he took a big liking to me in 2002. And he became my number one mentor, more than anybody. And Fritz was spending a lot of time in Brazil and Mexico and Honduras and Dominican Republic, but especially Brazil and Mexico. You can see the Drew Estate is a Maduro heavy company. We do a lot of Maduro. I mean, tens of millions, 50s of millions, who knows, it's sort of money. We do a lot of money in Maduro business. That's a leaf that's one of our core competencies. Nobody can make Maduro like we do, or the amount we do is crazy. And that happened, a lot of it, because of the mentorship of Fritz and him being able to teach us of the difference of Brazilian Mata Fino, Mata Norte, Mata Sol, Piraca, and understanding the difference of plantation tobacco, farm, or these little nuances that gave us the power and insight. And then the magic touch, right, was when you're able to take Brazil or Mexico, for that matter, any of these countries. Look at Fuente. We're growing like the Fuente farm was the farm that could not grow wrapper. And they battled against all odds and grew not just wrapper, but epic wrapper that changed the world. I was there the night that Opus X got released to the world. And Carlito gave me 2 cigars up at Windows on the World at the World Trade Center. That's a fact. And I just, that moment, like my hair stands up on my arm right here. You know what I'm saying? When I think about that, Carlito and his dad standing there giving a speech and giving me those 2 cigars, and just, you know, thinking about the Chateau de la Fuente, and you know, all of that was what we call criollo. At the end of the day, it's the culture. It's the local culture. It's the local flavor. So I think what we did was, you know, whether you look at our brands like Kentucky Fire Cured Cigars, where we actually, if you guys know, we smoke the shit out of this tobacco. We smoke it the way you smoke peated scotch, or the way a Dutchman or somebody would smoke a fish in their backyard, or the way you would smoke a steak as opposed to grilling a steak. And that's a deep part of that Southern. So I talk about Kentucky Fire Cured is really say, JD, can you give us the, you know, what's the brand essence of Kentucky Fire? Southern hospitality. That type of being able to look at a local culture and being able to say, where do I relate to this, or where do I don't? Because I ain't doing it if we don't relate to it. We don't make cigars like that. We're missing the $3 price point in the Connecticut shade wrap. I give a shit about that. Let somebody else do that shit. What we're doing is, if we feel it. So those countries had so much influence, but the number one country for us of influence was Nicaragua, then Brazil, then Mexico, then Dominican Republic, then Honduras. But where we also got crazy was with Sri Lanka, or Israel, or Canada, Virginia, Kentucky, Connecticut, Florida. So we started really looking and lifting the rocks up and just kind of like saying, oh, what's it about? How do we relate to this? What part of our, that's why with Willie Herrera, when we brought on Willie, we were like our brand plan and format, not brand plans, call it our portfolio of brands. All of our house of brands, Acid, Liga, Undercut, Heresy, Natural, all ladder up to our branded house. Look at our Fabrica. Drew Estate is our brand. That is our lifestyle brand. And we were the non-Cuban brand. Like, we were not the, hey, my cigars taste just best thing out of Cuba, but not from Cuba. Or if you want Cuba, you buy my cigar. We were like, no, fuck that shit. Cuba's over there with Drew Estate. This is the rebirth right here. That's why when people started moving towards our direction and being like, yo, this Drew Estate guys, we got it, they're doing 20, 30, 50, 60, 70 millions of dollars of business. And they realized we can't just have them own this market. We have to be there. Was when we shifted. And I said, we're going to zigzag at this moment. That's why I brought on Willie Herrera, because he has that old Cuban sensibilities to him. He's a Cuban guy, motherfucker, 6'8". And he's, he understands Cuban blending. And maybe in Little Havana, I said, this is a time for us to do the zigzag zigula in the Honorable RZA words. We moved at that point to taking a more traditional approach. It was time for us to shift the ecosystem back when everybody else was moving towards us. So for us, not only do we, when Manny Casado had taught me, if you guys know Fonseca, the brands are so, but Fonseca as a brand, and the history of Manuel Casada, another industry legend and great. He taught me in 1996, 95, before I opened my store. He taught me the difference of vertical blending and horizontal blending. And what he said was, I blend vertically and horizontally. And I'm sitting there just in awe of this great man. And this is the week or two before his brother passed away up in a helicopter up in the mountains. And he said, I blend vertically from up and down the plant. Seco, in his case, velado, seco, vitulero. And then horizontally, meaning different neighborhoods in Dominican Republic. And for us in Esteli would be Esteli, Jalapa, and Condega. And now between the two mountains over there, Ometepe. And so vertically up and down the plant, horizontally across different neighborhoods, different areas. And what I did was I took that application that he came up with, and we brought that across the board into everything that we do at Drew Estate. It became, we took his equity and we absorbed it into our Drew Estate culture. And that's why I told you, we don't blend from one country. We blend horizontally across a variety of different countries. And then even within one country, there's nothing worse than a cigar that's blended from one farm, in my opinion. Now, I don't know what people say this or that. I'm not talking about other companies because I get all mixed up. But for me, when you have tobaccos that are from one farm, it's very difficult. I'm not saying that there's one company. I'm going to say we would do that or not do that, whatever. But making a tobacco from one farm, where all the tobacco is from that farm, always what happens. And Blanco can testify. It's very difficult. Maybe one company can do it. Otherwise, what happens is the tobacco becomes empty. What we say is empty. It's open. It's nothing. So it's a blending of the culture, and then it's a blending of the actual hard currency, the commodity, the actual tobacco itself. And we're very philosophical at Drew Estate. There's a lot of philosophy that's based behind what we do. So I'd say that the local flavor is deeply embedded into our DNA, for sure.
It's a brilliant aspect that you just touched upon, talking about the portfolio, and obviously everything that you mentioned with blending horizontally and vertically, it ultimately culminates in Drew Estate's offering an eclectic range of cigars catering to all various palates. Do you think that a true legacy brand needs to speak to many different people, palates, and occasions? Or is it ultimately about creating that clear, concise, narrow path with a distinct unisono-like profile?
Yeah, that's sharp, dude. Nice one. So this for me is really clear. It's a good question, but it's really a clear pathway. When you think of Fuente and Padron in particular, and the other heritage brands, you call them legacy brands, I call them heritage brands. I would not. Well, it's not important who is not, but there are a lot of companies who have that for 2 and 3 and 5 and 7 generations. There are other companies who who are younger, newer, but who have that as well built in. It's really, I think, we talk about DNA a lot, and that approach for an older company, for a heritage company, I think that staying within their, it's typical. What I've seen is that whenever they go out of that, they don't do well, and they also kind of lose themselves. Why? The authenticity becomes replaced with some marketing whiz. We're going to hire Billy Bob, Willie Billy, and he's going to come in and take our marketing. And he's telling you, yo, you got to do this, man, cherry flavor. I don't know, whatever, making images of graffiti. I've watched that happen too from fellow friends in the industry and get smacked down because it's not authentic, right? So a guy who's like, or a gal, whoever, who's, so I think from the heritage brands, they've learned to stick to their passion, and it serves them so well because it's such a beautiful journey and a deep journey, a long journey. It kind of never ends. It's like when you think you're in the beginning of Fuente, or when you think you've learned everything about Fuente, you're only at the beginning. There's a lot to unpack, and it keeps rewarding you, like seeing a movie 3 times, like, oh, yo, the 3rd time I saw it is when I realized this dude was crazy from the beginning. It's like, yeah, how did I not see that the first time? Every time you smoke a cigar, it's like reading a book again, right? That book, Around the World in 80 Cigars. Read it its 2nd time and its 3rd time, and guess what happens? You go, oh, I missed that the first time. That's interesting. And I think those heritage brands have that beauty to them, especially as a historian such as myself, especially from the tobacco perspective, which I am. It's an endless journey to unpack, and you learn more. And each time you smoke that cigar, you also learn more, especially when you smoke it in different ways. You buy an Opus, or you buy a Hoya de Nicaragua right off the really new, and don't sit it and age it. It's going to taste very different than, you take an Opus and you put it down for 2 years or 5 years or 7. Those are 3 different journeys. None are better than the other. You got to know them all. It's like a great graffiti artist. Everybody wants 80s work from a graffiti artist. What you want, the golden 80s. What do you got? 80s, 89 to 89. It's got an 8 in front of it. But that's not the truth about understanding, knowing an artist. You have to have his 70s work and her 80s work and her 90s work and her 2000s work. And that journey of that graffiti artist's journey every decade, every 5 years, when that moment where you see them change, they no longer put those red houses in, and instead it's this black gallant horse of some nature, whatever it is. Those moments of change is where risk is involved. That's where you are putting your nuts on the line, and you're doing that risky, moment, emblem of change, moving from success to why expose yourself to any potential of doing poorly. That's what bleeds in from the heart of an artist, is wanting to be heard, wanting to be seen. Why a graffiti artist goes and he throws his name up on a wall 5,000 times, the same name, Is the Wiz. Is the Wiz was all city. Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, Staten Island, and Manhattan. You did all 5 in one night, that means you're all city. You can paint all cities in one night, a giant among giants. And, we all want to push ourselves, artists, and I think that heritage brands, their broadness is tighter. It's a tighter focus. But when you really start saying, all right, Drew Estate has, infused acid. They have tobacco. They have coffee Java and tobacco special. You're talking 25, 30, 40 million, big numbers in coffee infused. So major brands, giant, blow your mind. Another segment, Drew Estate is a market leader in diversified segmentation. It's a very diversified segmentation strategy. It's built on that framework. And whether you look at Kentucky Fire Cured, or you look at the acid infusions, or you look at coffee infusion, or stalk curing from the Connecticut River Valley, all of these segmentations for us are big segments. But when you look at the traditional brands, Cuba, perfect example, and you just take a narrower lens and say, look, I only drink, Bordeaux. What about this red wine and that red wine? I don't give a shit. I just drink Bordeaux. And you realize there is a world to unlock of Bordeaux. It never ends. So you got to pick your path, you know.
We spoke about antithesis. For a lot of people, quality and quantity are two different sides of a medal. Do you think there is like a sweet spot where the two connect on the line, or do they at some point necessarily start to conflict each other?
This is my language. You know, one thing about Drew Estate, we don't grow tobacco where we own the farm. Clearly, right? We go to farms and say, we'll take everything here, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, whatever it is. So we take farms. I mean, we've gone back with Fuente wanted that, we wanted that farm. Davidoff wanted that farm, we wanted that farm. You know, that happens. Everybody's very respectful towards each other. But we've never really mastered the art of growing tobacco, because we've always said, let's be true to our heritage, which is tobacco manufacturing. That's what we do. We manufacture cigars. And I believe in my heart that this is our real core competency as from a technical, I was talking about from a technical capacity. So quality versus quantity do not have to be mutually exclusive. You can say, hey, we only do quality, we don't do quantity. That's just jargon. It's fucking blabber. It's just, you know, marketing words, which I love marketing words. You know, when I sold the company, I think I had 79, 80 trademarks. Loved strong words. Nomenclature is king. But it's just nonsense. Give you a perfect example. All the breweries around the way, they're all over wherever the breweries are. And this guy's got a big brewery. That guy got a big brewery. This one, oh, growing through the roof. This brewery is on fire. The early days of Samuel Adams. You know what happens when they go to the Budweiser brewery? They go visit the king or the low and back, whatever. They're still, you know, in Nicaragua, Tricky Bermejo, who's the son of Juan Francisco Bermejo, who was the first person to actually own, I think it was Huey de Nicaragua at the time. You had Francisco Bermejo, you had Simon Camacho, and another dude I know, Jose knows.
Fonticiera.
Yes. Who was the third guy?
Fonticiera. And of course, Somoza was the fucking biggest owner.
He was the fourth Beastie Boy. You always say that there was three Beastie Boys. Then there was this other dude who just passed away, actually, great guy, Ricky Powell. And he was the fourth Beastie Boy. Somoza was the fourth Beastie Boy. The Fat Boys are back. And, you know, we used to go to his factory, to Tricky Bermejo's factory, shortly after Juan Francisco died, Bermejo. And that was the Naza factory. And now it's called Naxa for free trade zone reasons. And we used to go to that factory and they would make 100,000 I remember they were doing like 85,000 cigars a day, 90,000 cigars a day. Me and Perdomo would talk, and I talked to the Oliva guy in Placencia, like, yo, they're making almost 100,000 cigars a day. We would go, and Tricky would help all of us out. Tricky would always, you know, we all lifted each other up. The Oliva kids, who now own Oliva Cigars, are a tremendously great company. And this is all bullshit. Quantity versus quality. I think that you can get to a number. Skip Martin has a very nice little business in Nicaragua. And he said, like, once I get to 1 million sticks a year, I'm going to stop. And I think he did. You know, he stayed, I believe, true to that, you know. But it doesn't mean quality versus quantity. This is nonsense. I think there comes a point, though, many of you probably experienced this, where, like, you use American Airlines and you're like, wow, they do the best seats, the best this, the best that. And then when they become the biggest, they're kind of quality because shitty and they're just making that money and they let the quality go down. It's very prescribed. It's like bean counters prescribing. How much will we let our quality go down? Our profit drives up. And after 7-year cycle, we'll start to clean it up. We'll fire a whole bunch of people. We redo. This cyclical piece. There's cyclicality in every single business and in every industry. So if you have cyclicality in an industry and you have cyclicality in your own identified business within that industry, you have to make sure that you're very, very careful with that. I think at Drew Estate, there's a major, I don't want to call it, there's a major The Swisher organization who purchased us, they never wanted us to lose that irreverent, just in your face with a can of mace. They never wanted us to lose that. Because it was a very good fit of our two companies to come together, because Swisher has always been a bit irreverent, right? Swisher Sweets. And they didn't want Drew Estate to lose that Drew Estate feeling. And just so you understand, if I was to guess who wants to grow bigger, you would Swisher people or Drew people. You might say, of course, the Swisher guys. So they want the shareholders get the money. No, we're vicious. Jose will tell you, we're vicious. We just kill the bees. We keep growing. I'll build another factory. Van Olden will build a factory. We put up another. We just built Drew Estate 3. It's the third factory on our compound. You're talking like, man, talking serious facilities, just enormous. That's the Drew Estate way. We don't hold back. And so I challenge that concept. I decline that concept of quality versus quantity. And I believe that you have products within your brand portfolio could be quality, more on the spectrum, up and down, right? More quality driven, Liga Privada, as opposed to more quantity driven, like factory smokes. They're not the same. They need to have different criteria and criteria that guide your decision making as you make these brands. Which tobacco you buy, which rollers you have roll it, how the experience of the rolls work, how many quality control people or color sorters you're going to have. And so you never look at one product. Just thinking of other companies, do you think that Fuente looks at the way an Opus X is rolled as they do a Fuma? Of course not. A Fuma is a great quality Fuma. Go find a better Fuma. You're not going to. So in its category, it's great, but it never would have the same type of level of care, I imagine, because I can't speak for any of the. I talk a little bit about these companies you hear me repeat about, Padron and Fuente and Hoya and some others, Pepin, a number of them, Placencia, the octopus. And I talk about these companies a lot because they really inspire me. And I've been doing this 25 years, so I don't need to talk about anything I don't want to. And I talk about these companies a lot because of my love of them and what they've brought to, what they've accomplished. And I still feel as though they still guide a lot of a company like Drew Estate in terms of having good ethics, caring about your employees, and what happens when you persevere and when they burn your factory down, or they shut you down, or the taxes come, or whatever it is. If you fight and you will persevere, you will sustain. So I draw a lot of that inspiration from these, Cuban heritage brands and the families who run them.
If you could wish for a certain change in the industry, what could that be? What would be your whole, like the heartfelt ambition for an element in the industry that we could all work on improving together?
Reinhard, I'm learning a lot about you. I really enjoyed the interview you did for the Nicaraguan Cigar Association. I watched one of those recently. It was really good, and I'm really pleased that we've had this time together today to get to take this little moment in Drew Estate's world, and I think like to say the cigar world bigger than Drew Estate, which is something really that we have spoke a lot about today. I'm a steward chartered with the responsibility of continuing a great journey and culture of our tobacco world and premium cigars. I take that very seriously. It extends way past Drew Estate's front door and back door. From a standpoint of change, man. Well, maybe this is age kicking in, my brother, but I actually want less change. When you think about it, right? The status quo, the thesis. they don't want change. They don't want disruption because everything's going good. We don't want no fucking little extra state coming around disrupting this whole shit. And we got to change things. We lose market share. So maturity, as we move through life and time, naturally evolves you into this creature of not wanting change, because there's a smoothness, there's an algorithm to this new paradigm or this, cadence that we've moved into. And all of a sudden there's disruption going on. You go, oh man, I got to learn how to use Coinbase. I have to trade cryptocurrency. I don't want to trade cryptocurrency. Hey, I got to learn that shit, trade it. And I want, whatever the new pieces are. Drew Estate has always been at the forefront of what I call collaboration. So you see it now a lot. Nike X LeBron James, Nike X Adidas even. I'm just making that up theoretically so everybody can get it. And that collaborative approach, collaboration and branding, right? Dogfish Head and M&M, just as an example. M don't drink, but I'm just saying, like, whatever it could be. That's something that we were on the forefront of, separate from cigars. Whether we were collaborating with Pappy Van Winkle, or collaborating with M&M, or collaborating with Rocky Patel, or collaborating with, Kahlua. When you go back to Kahlua days, we were very, very young, like young adults, let's call it, in the cigar industry. We locked down Kahlua. This was owned by Allied Domecq, a giant French and Spanish conglomerate that was so big that when they broke it in half and sold the parts out, went to Diageo and to, I forget which the other one, Brown Forman or something, major brands, Kahlua and Sauza and Beefeater Gin, and I think they were doing $7 billion in business, major shit. We collaborated with them and we got our license, and they said that we were the company that all licenses should be judged against. Change for me at this point, a lot of cigar smokers out there are what I call the what's new guys. And they're like, hey, you're walking the unit, like, no, to the retailer, what's new? And the retailer's like, yeah, I got you. Bing, bing, bing. And then there's the guy who comes in, doesn't want to know what's new. He's more brand loyal, right? The brand loyalty aspect to it. Who do you think's more brand loyal? The guy who smokes the super premium cigar or a cigarette smoker? The guy who smokes a Padron, Fuente, Drew, Hoya, whatever it is, or the guy who smokes a Marlboro, or who smokes a Newport extra mint. You would think that the loyalty factor would be a higher rating, a higher score to the premium cigar smoker, but it's actually not. Watch a cigarette smoker. They drive over to a gas station 3 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock at night. They go in there for their whatever Camel Wides. And there's no Camel Wides. They'll go buy a pack of Camel. They'll smoke one cigarette, through the rest of the cigarettes right to the garbage can, and drive to the next gas station and get a pack of Camel Wides. You go into the store looking for a Perdomo. They didn't got the one you wanted, and you leave the store with a Pepin. That's not a cigarette smoker. It's you have to unpack. And I think that from a collaboration, I think we've pushed it so far, not your real estate, but the industry has pushed it very far. So the biggest change maybe that I could think of would be more of a dedication towards the growing aspect, where we're able to empower villages to have clean water, to have stronger irrigation systems. The Israelis and the Cubans are very famous for looking at very specifically at irrigation patterns, irrigation systems, as well as curing barns and curing facilities. So when you walk into a typical style curing barn, where tobacco, after tobacco is grown on the field, it goes into a wheelbarrow and it enters what's called the curing barn, and it gets hung. Sometimes it gets hung by the plant leaf. That's called priming a tobacco. And sometimes you cut the plant at the bottom and turn it upside down and hang it in the barn. That's stalk cutting. But both of those land in a curing barn, typically made of wood or metal, better wood. And, you open the windows and the doors during the day to bring in humidity. And then at night you burn hard woods to be able to bring the humidity down. It's just the same thing in your personal humidor at your house. You guys say, hey, when you buy this humidor, make sure you open it once a day and make sure once a month and turn your cigars around. Do you ever think why he's telling you that? It's the same reason that you take a curing barn and you bring the humidity up in the day and down at night, or in Florida's case, the opposite, interestingly enough, because you got to think of dew point. We all think of humidity and temperature. Often we don't think of dew point and how that affects cigars and why that's really relevant. in the early maturation process, where we go from green to yellow to light brown to brown, which is the processes of a curing blonde, what it's there for. I think there's going to be a lot to come from a standpoint of industry disruption, but it's not going to happen for a little while as we work through the FDA stuff, which, leaves a lot of questions in terms of what's this and what's that. For me, I've always believed in blended approach. And I think there is where you're going to see a lot of, for instance, the Liga Privada 10, that's a hybrid tobacco. And the Liga Privada H99 is a hybrid tobacco. So when you guys think of Connecticut stalk cut tobaccos or a T52, which is Habano seed grown in the Connecticut River Valley, look at this. Ready? Davidoff. Let me tell you, at the forefront of early hybridity was Davidoff, because ASP Perez, he was one of the greatest seeds hybrid guys ever to do it. So whether that was taking different seeds and I don't want to get too deep into that because it's a little issue, but bottom line is that I think there's a lot of platform. There's a lot of runway for us to be able to really not just come out with a cigar like H99 or Liga Privada 10 and say, this is a hybrid of broadleaf and T52, or we have a variety of different hybrid products that you see now or coming to market. And it's not just the fanfare of like, oh, I got to get that stick. How'd you like it? Well, I liked it. It had a very bold flavor and it was complex. But I think that there's going to be a lot more there to understanding what can really be done when you think of the DNA, the genes of tobacco, and how that can really be explored, new tastes for us that are really, change the industry. So I think there'll be a lot of agricultural movement from a commodity side. That's really right now, you're going to see the world move into a moment of inflation. It's coming. We're here. We're in it. Natural resources are becoming stretched. As natural resources around the world become more stretched, moving water around, not just water, food, land that's been over agricultured, that has now will no longer grow the right materials that you want anymore, and you're forced to look to basically science, to new fertilizing systems. Plasencia, he created organic tobacco, Organica, which is a very future forward product, very brilliant man, the greatest who's ever lived, in my opinion, in terms of a tobacco grower, Nestor Plasencia, and his son is badass too. This journey is going to be very important. So that's, for me, is going to see, I think, the greatest change, as well as more understanding. Just I concern myself here with, it's almost like, Reinhard, that this concept of going deeper into the understanding of seed advancement, of curing facility advancement, or process, right? All the guys on this phone call tonight or whatever, you all smoke air-cured cigars. That's what you smoke. There's fire-cured cigars, there's air-cured cigars, there's flue-cured cigars, there's Oriental processed tobacco, all of these different types of tobaccos. These are brand families that go they're vertically integrated brand families that go into your processing. Air-cured tobacco, you bring in humidity and then let humidity out. That's it. Flue curing tobacco, that's where you use heat, as opposed to when we fire cure, which is using smoke. So you walk into a room with fire curing, it's so hot, you got to go in a jumpsuit. I can take it for 5 seconds, 6 seconds. I come out of it. Oh my, whoa, what just hit me? Somebody give me a Negroni. My ass is baked at 5 seconds, 6 seconds, and then 6 seconds. It's so hot, but it's not the heat that's making the tobacco go through its process. It's the smoke. Where flue curing, it's different. It's really about the heat. So I think the problem is, as much as people want to go deeper into the tobaccos, there's so much hype in marketing and so much quick information coming to us from the digital through the web, the interweb, that a lot of that gets kind of culled off the top of and the people who want to go one step deeper, I'm finding them to be less and less. Unfortunately, it's a little sad because they're just caught up into a whole bunch of bullshit, of which we're part of that bullshit too. We throw the hype machine on when we want to get down, we want to get busy, we need to, put some commas on it, and make some money. We do it too. And but I think there's a good balance there at Drew Estate, and I'm really looking forward to being the not me, but us, Drew Estate, being probably the leader in that journey of hybridity, based on the platform of Liga Privada and what we're doing with Liga 10 or H99. Come to our events that we do. We do every night. We have various events with Pedro and Willie and Frank. Frank is on there, and myself sometimes. And we do our sales events online and in the stores. And you'll see the people who are out there searching for some of these hybrid products. I think we have a lot to do to let the tobacco journey might be 400 or 500 or 1,000 years old, but it's still at an early stage of development. There'll be a long journey of tobacco and what it can be.
Over to Ricardo, our dear friend, firmly planted in London these days, but with his heart right in Nicaragua. Ricardo, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Reinhard. And Jonathan, you know, I couldn't miss this when I don't get a chance to join your calls in US times when it's a little bit later. And I'm so happy that you had a chance to come in to light him up and meet Reinhard. He knows how much I appreciate and admire his style. I knew it was going to be, he's a man of depth, a man of profoundness, like you are. And I knew this was going to be an amazing conversation. Not sure what direction it was going to go, but as you have felt it, I knew it was going to be beautiful to have him ask you a few questions and make you think and get that thinking cap that you have. We spent together quite a few conversations in the past couple of years now, and philosophizing and divagating through things of the world. So I'm delighted to see you, happy to see you healthy and good and excited and in a good mood. Even if you're the evil guy, you're the Godzilla, but today you're being the Godzuki, which is amazing.
Right. No, listen, Ricardo, you know, for those who don't know, you know, Ricardo's the ambassador to Nicaragua based in London. And over the last number of years, it was cigars that brought us together, and even more than cigars, way more than cigars. I'll be honest with you guys, it's Nicaragua that really brought us to a point of, because I know, Ricardo, you're a fan and a student of tobacco and the tobacco culture and premium cigars. And when we really started to get to know each other on the Nicaraguan side of talking about, you know, why Sebaco can make the best guajilla. Why is it that why is Sebaco, where they really is a coffee area, it's right at the base of Matagalpa. Why is it there that you go to this place and the two sisters and the guy who owns it, and they'd have the corn that they're grilling out in the front. And we really linked from that side of it. And a lot of this.
I was going to say, how can you say he looks like a mature gentleman? He's got bright orange trainers on.
Yeah, and
he's got bright orange trainers on.
The birthday boy. We can hear him.
Yeah, there you go. So, no, this was definitely having you, watching what you've done too, man. I got to tell you, is you've really, through Diplomat, Cigar Club, you've really brought so much worldwide attention to our passionate industry, and certainly to Nicaragua. I think that's really something that, for me, I'm a philosopher style guy, you know, and we get into it, you and I. And one time in a call, you saw me get aggressive, not towards you, but just like right afterwards, I had to say to you and a friend of ours who were on, I said, Ricardo, yo, that's a piece of me you never saw before. And you were kind of looking at me because I know you respect me and you know how I feel about you. I really admire you and enjoy our conversations. And, you know, when I get lit up, you know, I have to consistently pull myself back, you know, and if with Nicaragua, anything Nicaragua, I really am a big believer in the growth of this country and the growth of the people there. And I think we're in the early stage. The tobacco industry, actually, I believe, has been kind of like, has kind of been the biggest platform, in my opinion, to bring people to the culture of Nicaragua, to understand why go to Nicaragua, where we used to go to Costa Rica, why people go to Bali for a vacation, or wherever people go. I think that cigars, premium cigars, have brought more people into the fold of Nicaragua, even than coffee. Because even Starbucks, they wouldn't even admit they were using Nicaraguan coffee. They were using tons of Nicaraguan coffee and buying it by the shit. And there's this weirdest thing, I guess, you know, because of Nicaragua, maybe it's very dynamic history in terms of both Nicaragua and Cuba have this very like, whoa, be careful what you say. There's a lot to know. There's a lot of things, you know. So Nicaragua's always been this country and people are a little sensitive, like be careful where you step right there. And I think that a lot of that's changing.
Yeah.
And when people realize how beautiful the people are in Nicaragua and what it means to spend time on a vacation there, or to go to the different regions, the 16 different regions throughout the country, or 18, and spend time there, you know. So I really appreciate you being so diplomatically charged and involved in terms of kind of being, I believe, like you're almost like the cigar ambassador to Nicaragua for cigars. You know, you're like our piece there. So it's always great to see you, dude.
Well, no, you're too nice. You flatter me too much, but ultimately that's what friends do sometimes.
You got a new look though. You got a new? Is it a mustache or the hair? Something's new and kind of like.
I don't know. Must be lockdown. And the last few months not seeing each other for a month or so. But look, what I wanted to say is, aside from obviously seeing you, saying hello, and what you said today has been, as every single call that you jump in, either bilateral or in groups, everyone gets to learn a lot. And I become a richer man every time I get to hear you and pick up those nuggets of knowledge in the raw way that you put them out there, in a way that you need to, almost like an Uzi shooting, and you need to be able to catch them and pick those nuggets. But I had a comment. Something that I always impressed by you is what you've done in my country, having come in at a time in the early 2000s when it wasn't a really nice place to go aside from the people and the land. I mean, it was a really tough place to go. And then I saw you being part of that rebirth and transformation of my people. And as you said it, we become prouder through cigars. And that's in many ways thanks to you. And then I see you doing that, and you've done a similar thing with another place where I spent 4 years of my life. A place that when I used to go, it was either bad mistake, and I was afraid of my life, which was Little Haiti, which is Wynwood. And what you've done, I lived there for 4 years back in the early 2000s. So you were going to Nicaragua, I was going to Miami. And what the transformation of that place as well has been incredible. And everyone in the industry that you speak to, you were that pioneer there, creating the change and revitalizing the whole place and making a change that I haven't been there in years, but what I see from you on social media, from everybody that tells me, you've been able to go to communities and literally transform and improve in amazing ways. And that's something that we all need to be grateful for. I know I am in Nicaragua for sure. And with that is thinking ahead, and you kind of alluded to this question that I have in terms of what's next in the industry, and you talked about that, but I have sort of two questions related. See, I'll attempt to ask two. I may get none of them responded, and that's okay. But the first one is in terms of you've had 25 years, you've been there, you've done that, you learned so much, and as a company, you've done that. Is there one thing else in particular that you feel you can still learn and do as an organization globally? So as Drew stated, not only US, think globally. Is there one sort of pending item that you say, you know what, that's something we need to learn and we can really do and we haven't really done? That's one part of it. And when that's done, and 25 years from now, you and I will meet in one of each other's burial. What do you want your epitaph to say in Nicaragua? So when Nicaraguans have that epitaph in your cemetery, what is the main thing that you would like Nicaraguans to write about you and be remembered for? Give it a go. I would love to.
So those are two questions. The first one is really The first one is really the global thing that DE would look to venture into and really become an expert in. And the second one, is much more personal to me, and that one is from JD, how I'd like to be remembered from the Nicaraguan journey. So I'll address the first one first. And again, Ricardo, I'm just going to say I love you. I really enjoy the way you look at things and deconstruct them, whether it's cigars or travel or any of the taking care of the people of Nicaragua, which I know how dedicated you are. The first one from the Drew Estate side is definitely on the growing. You can tell it burns me throughout the years when I talk about, Drew Estate is a manufacturer. We don't grow tobacco, have our own farms. That is anger. That's basically what you're seeing there when you look correctly through the lens is I'm using an excuse to say, hey, we are this superior, let's call it, meaning not better than everybody else, but at the top of the food chain of a manufacturer. We can really make good cigars, and we do them well, and we make money. We're efficient, and we find part of the value chain for our staff. But we really, I really would love to see the day that Drew Estate has its first farm that we own. I don't care if it's 10 acres or 150 acres or whatever. And I think globally, as I was speaking about Fritz Bossert before in Universal Leaf, when you really think of the amazing cultures that are embedded in tobacco, look at this. Ready for all you guys who are here? Look at any factory and see the different bales of tobacco. Some are white. Some of them are this sack-like material. I forget what it's called, the sack. Some of them are orange, pink, and they're different material, plastic materials. Some of them are burlap. Why? Why are those bales all different? Same reason that the bale machine that makes the bale are all different. It all comes from that cultural aspect of where they come from. So for me, I would love to see the day where we become actual farmers. Not that we're not good at farming or have agronomists working with us and everything else, as we are. That's the first answer. And I would like to see us do it globally, step-by-step approach, but I would love to see that happen. It has not happened yet. That's first, Drew Estate. On the second piece of your question, which you said to me, I don't know if you're going to answer these because like JD goes off into some fucking sideway. No, you see, I'm improving, The second one is in terms of what I would like to be remembered for in Nicaragua through my Nicaraguan journey. The probably, the saddest thing is everything fades away and you won't be remembered. Believe it or not, coming to terms with that is very painful because when you're a person who believes in legacy, you want to have your legacy live on forever, like the Beatles or John Lennon or whatever you think of yourself as, right? We all have high thoughts of ourselves. They're very important. But I've come to the term that one day you're going to forget about my fat ass. They'll be like, yeah, there was this fat kid from New York. He did something. I don't know what he did. Anyway, let's go smoke a nice stick. And that will happen. And I'm come to terms with that, just our limited lifespan in every kind of way. But for the people who we've touched and the people who I know that we were there when they said, hey, we need a new speaker system for our church, or that, one of the guys who work at the factory, his son is very severely, has issues, and he needed this room built for him because it was affecting his work quality. He was always dealing with his son's friend. In fact, we came in, we helped him, and we did that. All of those pieces to it in Nicaragua, that I think is the journey. I really believe the people in Esteli, hundreds of families, if not thousands at this point, really have a fond thought of me, and of course even more importantly, of our company. That really brings me it brings you a big smile. You know, the story of old man Padron or Jose Orlando when the war was going on. I talk often about the Sandinista Contra War, the Revolutionary War. I talk a lot about that time, but while things are going on like that and madness of different things, moving parts and pieces, you know, people in America, people, oh, the bad guys, the good guys, this is and that. And it's very interesting to look behind the curtain a little bit and see who was, and I'm just not about blaming or any of that shit. I'm not like that. But one story that I'll start to wrap up tonight is a story about Orlando Padron that never left my mind. And it was early that I learned it when I came to Nicaragua, which was during the war, while there's accusations and things going on and people, the tough times. At one point, all of the workers of Padron came to the streets and they surrounded him. Hundreds of employees surrounded this man, and he was young. Wasn't the old man that we think of now, you know, older man. He's passed. We've lost him. Rest in peace. And they surrounded him, and they made that Troy. And I talked to you guys about Troy and building that wall. That he did that, and that was really for me one of the most impactful stories that I ever learned about any tobacco man. How they stood there and defended him with their lives. And I think that's an aspiration that I would love to live up to. Maybe never will. Maybe touched and bit at the ankles of it in a few ways, and maybe accomplished it. I don't know. And I think I share that journey with Drew Estate. So it's something I can share and be really proud to say, as well as our company. And no, I even appreciate you making me think of that, because these are great thoughts and of a great man in an interesting moment in a great country. So yeah, being good to people is really a simple thing. A lot of people don't have a clue of how to do it, and a lot of people do. So I like focusing on the people who do a lot better, such as yourself. And that's why you and I vibe out the way we do, 3 hours and 2 hours, and me walking on the beach trying to get my fat ass to shape, and we'll talk, or at the American Hotel in our calls and chats, especially this summer that went this last 6 months. So you're a nice friend and a very good person, and the people out there should be you and Reinhard and a lot of the movement that's going on in Europe right now. Let me tell you, you guys are way ahead. It always seems to be like the Europeans will say, oh, well, these American guys, you know, we're doing our thing, they're doing it. But it's interesting right now. I see what's going on with a lot of the European and international, let's call it, side of the cigar industry. And it's really becoming a bigger movement. And you guys are doing cool things and really bringing up the knowledge and highlighting the cultural advancements and a lot of the characters, you know, myself included, to some degree, all the characters who are involved in illuminating those stories. Because really, what is our job? What is our role in bringing this culture forward? Is being a storyteller. And if your voice, you know, has magic, and you're able to tell that story, whether it's through a brand or whether it's through a leaf. The first time somebody said to me, yeah, I'm marketing this tobacco, meaning like me as a factory owner, marketing a tobacco, you're marketing me tobacco. I looked at the guy, I was like, you're what? Yeah, we're marketing this tobacco right now. And it was so weird to me to hear a tobacco grower say that to me, that he's marketing tobacco, which no brand on, it's just a leaf. And I realized, whoa, what does that really mean? It means that they took the family's money and they spent X amount of millions of dollars going to another country, buying a farm, doing the land, irrigating the land. I tell you, I've dug a lot of wells to get water. Digging the wells to get water, expensive and difficult, and then building that brand. And you're saying, hey, you know, when ASP moved to Peru to grow Peruvian tobacco, I gave them that lead. I brought the guy to their office. This guy, he can grow Peruvian tobacco. Make this introduction. They were laughing at me. Now they grow that Peruvian tobacco well, and they marketed it because they knew they could grow well, etc. So there's a lot left in our journey, Ricardo, and Diplomatic Cigar Club. You guys, I really like what you're doing, and I encourage everybody to be part of it as well. So thank you guys, and it's always great to see you guys. Really enjoy these international calls and what you guys are doing, and I really appreciate it. And it's a nice cast of characters on here today. It was a nice surprise to see all these friendly faces popping out.
Thank you. And my last quick comment to you is, if I had to pick one word, and perhaps Pedro, my fellow Nicaraguan, might agree, maybe we can pick one, and we will call it generoso, generous, and that's it. And I will leave it with that.
Right.
But thank you very much.
Absolutely, Ricardo. Very good, man. Good job, Jonathan.
Jonathan, one last
Yes.
question. If you were to say, outside that the Fat Boys are back, what has been the person more influential tobacco-wise on you?
Clearly, the most influential by far for me is Fritz Bosser, Universal Leaf. He influential. Yeah, him and Nestor Plasencia were the two most influential. Aspirational is different. That would be Carlito Fuente by far. But from a standpoint of influence, as Fritz shifted from, remember back in the day at General Cigar Company, which is a monster and always was, when his boss left, that was an interesting time anyway. So, and Nestor Plasencia, that again brings me back to when you think about how the Israelis and Cubans do things. It's like you have Israel, Cuba, and Nestor Plasencia. So just think about that statement for a second, right? A one-man army, a beast of just a beast. And his real passion is, and I'm going to speak for him for a second. He can correct me, and he has every right to, and I say it with most respect in the world. But his passion is the leaf, is growing tobacco, cultivation. Mine is processing, and manufacturing. Very different. Cultivation, processing, like we spoke earlier, fire cured, air cured, flute cured, that style, versus manufacturing. So those two. But I also, when you and I became friends 20 years ago or more, maybe 22, 23 years ago, me and you are peers. Our age difference is small. And I feel as though like there's a handful of people who you and I kind of all intertwined with as we learned and as we grew and found opportunities and walked away from things that weren't right for us. And I have a lot of influences, and you're one of them, brother. You know that. And that's, how did you wind up here? So they said, hey, listen, JD's doing a thing. We want you on here. He's going to enjoy seeing you. You look good.
Well, for 71 years old and a COVID survivor, I mean, great. So, and I've always supported Reinhard. I mean, what the Light Up Lounge has done is amazing. I mean, in a year have more than 500,000 views, it's been amazing. It's a new world. But anyway, Jonathan, look, it's great to see you. I know that everybody's thrilled. We could go 4 hours with you, but I think that my good friend Reinhard wants to wrap it up. And remember, the Fat Boys are back.
Yo, love you, man.
Jose,
really do. It's great to see you and great to see that you made it through this shit. Thank God. And Pedro, for those of you who saw Pedro, make your voice so you can pop on the screen somewhere. I'm on my phone.
What are you doing?
There he is.
Pedro.
This is a guy who's all about love right here. Pedro Gomez is one of our ambassadors, one of our 4 ambassadors of True Estate. He's like my little brother. And when we created Cigar Safari, Pedro became our tourism guy, head of tourism, worked with my ex-wife, Maria Luz, and developed Cigar Safari. And since then has become a big influence at our company. And Pedro is a young leader in our growing business. And love you, P. Good to see you.
John. Thank you so much, brother.
And Reinhard, thanks for having the crew, the Fat Boys Are Back coalition of the willing.
It's amazing. I'm truly blessed and honored and a little lost for words by the epic show up of people. We had so many people watching over on Facebook and even here at the lounge, all our dear friends and family. It means the world. And Mr. Drew, I couldn't be more happy and grateful and for everything that you shared with us over the last almost 2 hours. The end of the show sort of brings us full circle, and we spoke about the disruptive energy of Drew Estate, yet you also spoke in a bit of a different tone about the legacy brands. And I sense that you still carry all that disruptive energy, but so firmly rooted in self-awareness and being assured of who you are as a person and the journey that you had. A bit earlier, you mentioned that for an artist, like a graffiti artist, a painting or piece of graffiti in the 70s might be different than in the 80s and the 90s. And I wanted to ask you, how do you feel Jonathan Drew's art and the graffiti that you are painting on a daily basis in 2021 is different from the JD art when you sold the company and when you actually started the journey at your kiosk?
Yes. Wow. The biggest, let's call them points of departure. Departure is going to be a point of leaving. And then there's a moment of inclusion where things are coming in, right? Everything is this ecosystem. You can't be in 10 places at once. You can't have 500 best friends. We're forced to prioritize and to choose things that feel good for us, whatever that could be. Your friend who just, this guy's a boring guy, but I feel called to spend time with this guy. I walk away relaxed. He's a good friend. There's no reasons that can be put into place, but as I think the inputs and the outputs. That's how I look at a lot of things. And to some degree, I'm a very process-oriented guy. I've learned that about myself much more recently. Always been, but I just didn't know I was. I call it our value system. And this is the best way for me to answer this very complex, very deeply personal question, actually, is each of us have a value system, and that value system is constantly changing. You would be surprised, but your value system changes every 6 months to a year. And you might say, well, who's JD to say, well, my value system changes at all, let alone every 6 months? I'm not talking about your ethics. Not at all. I'm not talking about whether you're a good person or a bad person, or you save whales, which I'm a big supporter of because I kind of live in a whaling town in Sag Harbor, tip of Long Island, New York. But that value system that we have, as things become of interest to us, looking for a college for your kids, and you find the college, your kid's in his third year of college, I don't give a shit about it. I'm not looking for a college. That value system, that part that was so important to you for 6 months, 8 months, a year, finding that right college, getting little Billy his apartment to live in, and then that shifts out and it no longer becomes so important to us. I used to be a weed guy, like deeply involved in the weed industry in the Swiss Alps and in Amsterdam, and involved in packaging and understanding, creating, not necessarily owning, but being involved in that side of the world. And then as my tastes changed and that became less important to me, it became less something that I spend time on, and it lowers in my value system, my value equation. We talk about IQ as EQ as well, your emotional quotient. And the biggest form of change definitely has to do with believing or not in the human element, the kind of like faith, right? Someone talk about their faith who's very religious, and they'll say to you, I'm very religious. We pray. Ever sit with people, and maybe yourself, Reinhard, and they hold their hands before they eat, and they pray for a minute before you eat. If you're a person who hasn't done that growing up, and you do that the first time, like your eyes are open, everybody else's eyes are closed, and you're like, am I supposed to be embarrassed right here, or am I supposed to be feeling something? And then this weird magic thing happens. Like, even if you're not religious, it's kind of like you just close your eyes for a second, and there's somebody there just saying something really beautiful and blessed before you feed, before you eat. And I think that religion and spirituality, on a very personal basis, that was the second part of your question. I believe that I've become closer to, I don't want to necessarily say God, but I definitely feel as though I've become much more aware of why the Ottomans and the Mongolians and the Crusades were when they were, and how that the whole religious piece that's kind of tied around to history. So, things change. History will be written and will be rewritten. And the evolution of it for us, for me, speaking on my own personal behalf, is that we have to keep creating. We have to keep creating. And creation is an emblem of imagination. And that really is, you have to keep every day imagining and believing in the best, and keep that developing. So I hope to be able to continue to develop and deliver to you guys good things, good products, good culture, and be part to stuff that's happening that's positive. And I think that you, Reinhold, becoming more involved with us as a company. This is the first event that we've done together. I hope to see you potentially with Pedro or Willie in the future. And I think that we really appreciate this moment together. So I really want to thank you for that. You're a cool dude. You're a calm guy, huh? Just I like the way you do your interviews. It's very, very refreshing. And I really enjoyed today. That's why I was supposed to be on for an hour. I think I've been here 3 hours. I haven't shut the fuck up. So thank you for having us.
Thank you from heart.
I'm sorry to curse like a stupid American.
Okay.
That's just brilliant and authentic.
Wait for a long time wanting to say hi. So I'm sorry. I'm just going to grab the mic, steal the mic. Reinhard, if we may. Jonathan, may we do that?
There's even a public viewing going on, right? The entire crew.
Exactly. So here we are in Dubai. We have Beirut clan also with us. Reinhard.
No way.
Jonathan.
Hey, Beirut is in the house.
Tasting here.
Nicely done, Dubai. Nicely done, Beirut.
To definitely watch this. Thank you so much. And we just wanted to say hi and thank you for everything, honestly.
How cool is that? This was really blows my mind. You guys really put together something unique. Got a good surprises here, and you guys caught me off guard on that one. Nice, very good to see you guys. Thank you for joining us today. Yeah, you guys have had really. I mean, I imagine that in the Middle East and that cigar culture is growing out there in a very significant way, huh?
It really is. It really is. We're very proud of the kind of feedback we're getting on World Cigars. We're very proud of the kind of penetration we're having to the market. Nothing against other countries, but really Nicaraguan and New World cigars are booming. We're very proud and happy of the kind of results we're achieving, whether be it in Dubai or Lebanon, or the Middle East as a whole, and a lot more to come, that's for sure. We're very happy that Dubai is open, that it allows us to have cigar events. We've been having cigar tasting events for the past 3 days with our dear friend Jeremy from Kazdagli, and we look forward to the opportunity, hopefully, of having you in Dubai or in the Middle East soon, Jonathan. So we keep on begging, and hopefully, our prayers will come true one day.
You won't
You
have
thought
to be. You
being
won't have to be begging. I would love to come out. I would love to come out. We can plan this trip for early 2022, for mid 2022.
Okay.
And I will tell you right here live that I would be honored. I want we're going to be eating good food. That's going to be my ask in return is going to be great food, and to see beautiful cultural, religious sites and things. I'd love to spend some time out there. It's the only part of the world, well, not the only. Also, Africa I have not spent time in, and I've wanted to take that trip. So I would love to. And shout out to you guys, man. Thank you so much for coming and being part of this today. Nice.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. We would be honored to host you here, and we promise you to plan something amazing. Food, everything, the whole works. It'll be our honor, really.
Blessings to you, my dear friends. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for this, Reinhard.
Nice.
I would like
you made this really special, Reinhold. Thank you so much for this. This is just
I have to thank you.
It's like my birthday or something.
Everybody who tuned in today. It's been an exceptional show. And Mr. Drew, as I always tend to say, what doesn't stop fascinating me about the world of cigars is that a humble product like tobacco leaves rolled into a cigar offers me a glimpse into the heart and soul of the people who put so much heart and soul into making it. And I very much feel connected with all the people of the cigar world, and the wonderful conversation that you shared with us today, that you've blessed me with, also gives me a wonderful glimpse into your heart and soul. And for that, I want to personally thank you. It's been a tremendous pleasure and honor to have you. Thank you.
Reinhold, thanks again. Appreciate it. I like your style, dude. I really do. I really enjoy it. This is great. I enjoy the you guys blew my mind today. I have to make sure it's not my birthday. I got to double check because I feel like I got surprised a lot. JD don't get that surprise usually. So thank you very much, guys. And to all of the special guests we had tonight, thanks for making time. And these are fun times. I know we love this stuff. We're all a bunch of cigar geeks. And yeah, thanks again, man. Just really had a great time. Thank you very, very much.